everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Sperging Out Podcast. My name is Mitch Grace, and if you like what we're talking about in this episode and future ones, you can check out these subjects and more that I talk about at length in my published book, Growing Up with Asperger's, Lessons Learned and Shareable Wisdom by Mitch Grace, available on Amazon now. I am joined by my co-host extraordinaire.
Hello. My name is Aaron. I am an in-home therapist for adults with autism, so I have a lot of experience in this field, and I know everything there is about autism. Probably not everything. That's a little pretentious.
But yeah, so you're going to be getting both perspectives here in this episode, and so what a better way to start off the show by discussing the scientific and the personable aspect of what is and is not autism. So, co-host extraordinaire, how would you describe autism to someone who has never heard of it before?
Oh, man. Okay, so this is something that's always, media has ruined the definition of autism, or maybe just everyone has. Autism primarily, the singular symptom that is concurrent through all people with autism, is they have difficulty reading and understanding social cues. So facial expressions, tones of voice, the subtleties of social interactions. So not the stuff that's explicitly said, all the stuff you just kind of pick up on. During childhood, that creates a lot of issues because most of childhood development is based entirely around social cues. So one of the first symptoms of autism, or the first standout signs of a child with autism, is speech delays, because they don't pick up on all the speech patterns and things from their mother or father or the people around them. Of course, there are many other secondary symptoms that vary wildly between individuals. Obsession about a certain topic, inability to handle certain noises, textures, sounds, just smells, really any sensory issues. But those aren't always present. The primary thing is definitely just the social cues. And that even comes around to low spectrum autism, often referred to as Asperger's. It sometimes only presents itself as those secondary symptoms because the person has overcome their difficulty understanding social cues and has, through just sheer effort, work, and practice, has learned them. But if I were to define it to someone, it would just be difficulty understanding the subtleties of social interactions.
And when are the secondary and primary issues that are telltale signs of autism, when are those first observed?
The primary one, the speech one I mentioned, is around 2 years old. At 2 years old, a child should be able to talk in a full sentence. Not grammatically correct sentences, but full sentences. A lot of children with autism or people with autism at 2 years old do not speak in full sentences. Oftentimes, they do not speak at all. And that's a very telltale sign that their kid has autism. There could be other reasons. There are other speech disorders and other issues that could cause that. But that's usually where the first signs show up. After that, it's during early adolescence, early childhood, when they're starting to interact with their peers and they're not really making friends, or they constantly talk about the same subject and they just seem obsessive. They don't seem curious about the world around them. They seem very specifically focused. That's usually the next sign of autism.
Have you noticed with younger clients maybe that they're very selective when they do talk? Like, for example, when I was growing up, and I've even noticed this with some folks, and they have younger kids, I noticed the same issue. When I would talk, I would only recite lines from movies or video games. Like, I would have memorized them verbatim, and I would just repeat them to people without any prompting, without anyone asking, hey, what's that one line you like so much? No, I would just say it. Is that something you've ever noticed?
Yes, I definitely have clients. I have one client who apparently listened to a hip-hop song that I've never heard of, despite me listening to hip-hop. And he just quotes lines to me with no context about, sinning and Jesus and stuff, and it's nonsensical. And I have to reorient him back to the conversation and be like, hey, what the hell are you saying?
Right?
I don't understand. Hey, we're talking about school today, not whatever YouTube video you watched.
Yes.
Same with jokes. Humor is really rough for individuals with autism. They will tell the punchline of a joke without the setup or the proper context. So they'll just tell you about these people and they assume you know who Caillou or whatever characters are in their story are without ever telling you who they are. And it's like, I don't know who that is. Those are very common theory of mind issues where they think, I know this, so everyone knows this.
Another issue with autism is understanding sarcasm. That was a big one with me. My parents would frequently give me grief when they would, now I would know they are clearly being sarcastic about something, but I would think that they were being dead serious. Is that something you've noticed with your older clients?
Oh, absolutely. That comes back to the social cues. Like, sarcasm is really a weird, subtle thing that's like, it doesn't even make sense on an evolutionary, like, psychology level where it's like, what purpose does sarcasm have? But it's based entirely on the expression or the tone, mostly the tone of voice. And if you have a hard time differentiating, an upbeat or low beat or just different types of tones, you're going to miss those cues. So I have many clients that I'll say something sarcastically and they'll be like, wait, really? And then you have to be like, no, I'm joking. I promise. That was a joke.
Yeah,
You have
that's...
to be very explicit with a lot of individuals with autism, especially when you're working therapy. You have to be explicit and direct. You have to explain things that normally you would not think about explaining because you just assume other people understand.
Yes, tone for me was a big thing to understand. I still struggle with it. For example, when I worked in a sports bar, there was a coworker of mine who most of my coworkers knew or at least suspected I was on the spectrum. So, most of them didn't care, but one of them found out a way to, hey, I'm gonna mess with you for a bit. So this is a true story. I would set up the bar very early in the morning. And, I'd get ice. I would lay down the mats and whatnot, and I am there before the bartenders 9 out of 10 times. This one bartender came in, and she has a very monotone voice, very monotone. And so one morning I come in, I say, "Hey, good morning, such and such," and she says, "Fuck you, Mitch." And her deadpan monotone voice that she uses all the time, and then I start freaking out. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Was something wrong? Did I say something last shift? What's the matter?" And then she has to come off and say, "Mitch, I'm fucking with you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So
That's in a work context, that's a bit insane to just randomly whip out the "hey, fuck you," like, oh, okay, like even if you said it in the correct tone, I'd be like, "Excuse me."
Yeah. So, but in context, now that I I've worked with her a bit more, I know, okay, that's, she wasn't being mean. That's just how she talks to people, and she's
It's her personality.
Personality. She likes to bust balls and whatnot, and
Yeah.
so, but instances like that, tone, and then, so it's kind of a best of both worlds, but the inverse of that type of situation when it comes to autism people and tone, because not only, for my experience growing up, not only did I have a big issue understanding tone, but speaking tone. That was another big thing for me. Is it like that with your clients?
Yes, absolutely. So, again, during childhood development, you learn facial expressions and tone of voice from picking up on the social cues of the people around you. If you have difficulty picking up on those social cues, you do not learn them naturally. You have to actually think about it and put an effort to learn, which is difficult because there's no, you never go to class and go, okay, today we're going to teach you facial expressions. That's not a thing they teach in kindergarten.
Yeah, it is not.
So yeah, many of my clients will just stone face, blank face while they're talking to me about anything, and they will talk in a monotone way that makes it very difficult to understand what they are trying to convey emotionally. Which is why you have to make a point to really get explicit and be like, how are you feeling right now? Tell me exactly how you feel, because that explicit direct dialogue helps a lot. And then just being a good model, like showing off tone of voice, playing little games, making sarcastic remarks. I remember when you worked at that bar you were talking about, you would always watch Thomas the Tank Engine every day, and your coworkers would complain endlessly about it. Oh my God.
That's not true.
What? No.
That is not true. You are messing with me, good sir. To your point, though, point about tone, it is something you have to constantly work at, because even when I talk to my parents now, I will say something that I think is completely monotonous, completely neutral in tone. There's absolutely no way this could be misinterpreted at any other way. My parents will say, "Are you upset? Are you mad at me? What's wrong?" And I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm not upset." And I said, "It sounds like you're angry." And it's like, but I'm not angry. I'm just talking." And so.
Yeah, that becomes very difficult to suss out that when you're interacting with someone on the spectrum, especially if they talk in a very quick, short, kind of curt way. It can come off as anger when they're just explaining things in a very matter-of-fact style.
Yeah, there's this one autistic person I knew who they told me, you can keep their identity anonymous as possible. They told me that, they had a problem with, I want to tell this person I love them, but it comes out like I'm talking to you right now. It's just, it's very monotone, but the tone does not reflect the strong feelings I'm feeling, the strong emotions I'm having at this moment. So
they're coming out there like Ben Stein, be like, "I love you."
Kind of, yeah. So I can imagine why that would be incredibly difficult in a romantic situation, an emotional one. So we've discussed the social and tone stuff. What other things are telltale signs of autism? And no, it's not incessantly watching Thomas the Tank Engine.
It could be though. Okay, don't. I'm kidding. The telltale signs, those are really the primary ones. The other ones are usually sensory. People with autism, some people with autism, can't handle certain sensory inputs. So like loud noises really heavily affect them. Drones, continuous sounds really annoy them. Like a fan in a room, they just cannot handle it. Certain textures, like touching things. They don't like soft textures. They don't like rough textures. It depends on the person. Yeah. And then it primarily comes into food. A lot of my clients with autism, especially the younger ones, obsessively eat the same food because they just hate the texture and feeling of other foods. They're just like, oh, this isn't comfortable. I don't like this. And you have to like push that boundary and force them to do things out of their comfort zone to get used to them. Because a lot of it is just comfort zone. Like once they start really eating like spaghetti, they get over the texture of spaghetti. And they're like, okay, well, actually, now that I've tried it 20 times, I actually don't hate it.
Yeah, my poor parents. I was such, that's actually.
Yeah, you grew up eating only hot dogs and ketchup, right?
No.
Sorry, I had to.
Okay, no, it was peanut butter jelly sandwiches, sir.
Well, at least that's good.
So, but man, yeah, I actually never thought about the whole texture of foods things before because for me it was just taste. Like, my parents will tell me, "Oh, Mitchell, my real name's Mitchell, but I go by Mitch." Oh, Mitch, you were such a picky eater growing up. And now I'm starting to rethink that because I'm like, okay, was I really just a picky eater? And did I only want to eat PB&Js? Or was it an autism and texture thing? I'm starting to rethink this live. Like, this is never something I thought about.
Taste is a sense, too, that also people with autism get very specific about. But I find it's mostly textures very often.
Like, whenever my parents and I wanted to go out for a restaurant or even fast food, I was like, no, I want a cheeseburger. I want cheeseburger and fries. That's it. And I only wanted them from a specific place. I'm not going to tell you what that specific place is because you're just going to use that as ammo to roast me.
Oh, no. It's going to be somewhere bad. Dude was getting burgers from P.F. Chang's. I knew it.
I don't even think that's on the menu.
No, it's an Asian restaurant. There's no way they serve burgers.
So, point being, it really wasn't until I was in college where my palate really started to expand, kind of because I was forced to, because it was like, hey, I have to feed myself, so I have to try new things. Not everything I like is going to be on the menu. And then also, the things that I did like were on the menu were bad, because it was university cafeterias, so it was mass produced, so they don't taste good. Key example: the second college I went to, there was a running gag within the student populace where it's like, hey, don't eat there, you're gonna get food poisoning. And then I did eat there, and I got food poisoning twice. It was. I'm
That's
not kidding.
Bad.
So, like, they had fried chicken as an option for breakfast. I'm like, oh, I like fried chicken. I had it. It was so bad.
You got salmonella from it.
I hope not. But, like, they had waffles. I loved waffles. And they had waffles as an option for breakfast foods. I ate it. It was terrible. And it was just... So, because of this, I had to expand my palate. Like, I had to try omelets. I had to try breakfast potatoes.
So, wait, I have to ask. Do you like waffles?
Yeah.
How do they mess up waffles? It's you buy shake and bake and put it in a waffle iron. You can't mess up waffles. How did they?
I think it was cold.
Oh God!
It was like a brick.
That's horrible.
Like how they give you plastic knives in university cafeterias? No, I needed a metal one. It was horrible.
They're giving you frozen Eggos. They didn't even cook them.
Honestly, that's an insult to frozen Eggos. They were that bad.
Fair enough. I eat frozen strudels, so I can't say anything.
And I ate Pop-Tarts without putting them in the microwave, so I'm really not in a position.
Didn't even know people did that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, they taste better to me. Wild berry Pop-Tarts without toasting them. To me, that just clicked.
Wild berry?
Yeah.
Bro, you're basic.
Yes.
Real OGs get the cinnamon sugar and like apple ones.
I never
Brown
had those.
sugar, maple.
The thing is, I like brown sugar and maple oatmeal, but
Yeah.
Pop-Tarts, no, not my thing.
What about the Oreo Pop-Tarts?
Never had them because.
Oh, they're so good.
So okay, this
It's
is
like, we took the best part of Oreo and made it the most important part.
the stuffing.
Yeah, the stuffing.
Oh well, shit! Now I
So
need to
good.
try it. So here's a thing where. So this is just a little insight about me. This isn't an autism thing, but I can't stand the taste of chocolate. Milk chocolate, white chocolate, dark chocolate, peanut butter chocolate. If it has chocolate in it, I can't eat it. My taste buds are gonna pick up on it, and it's gonna come out. Whether or not it's in my stomach or still on my tongue is another story.
Wow.
But no, just I can't. So like Oreos, chocolate chip cookies, fudge, Nutella, can't have it. It just does not click with me.
Any form of chocolate.
Correct.
That's unfortunate. Chocolate's pretty good.
I've been told. But my doctor always makes a joke. Do you have a sweet tooth? Not really.
What about chocolate ice cream?
I can't. Nope, can't.
Wow. Okay. Because
Ugh.
I feel like chocolate ice cream doesn't even really taste like chocolate 99% of the time.
To me, it just doesn't taste good. I don't
Wild.
know what to say. But speaking of things that aren't good, I was gonna say autism, but that's not what I want to go
Ooh.
for.
Canceled.
Oh God! First episode, we get canceled. But circling back to autism, something. I mean, you mentioned earlier in the show, in jest, obsessively watching over Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yes.
But
Now go ahead. I didn't mean.
I was going to say that I do want to do a future episode about why autistic people like trains.
Yes.
Stereotypically.
I could give you a PowerPoint presentation on the weird specific individual characteristics that people on the spectrum tend to gravitate towards. And I can explain some of them, like cartoon characters being overly expressive. That's why people with autism love cartoons generally. It's because the bright colors and the overexpressive animations make it easier to pick up on social cues. But if we're talking about trains, I got nothing. I don't know why. It's specific and weird.
I can do a whole PowerPoint presentation on why autistic people like trains.
Okay.
I can.
That'll be a good episode.
Yes, it will. So
I'll do Sonic the Hedgehog and you can do trains. And Paw Patrol and
My Little Pony?
Teletubbies and My Little Pony. Yeah, they all have a common theme: brightly colored characters that are overly expressive and explicitly say how they feel out loud.
That's true. Although with Teletubbies, it's one of those things where it's like any adult watching that would be like, "What the hell is going on?" But kids are like, "Yep, nope, this tracks."
Yeah, it's just
this makes sense.
Watching Teletubbies as an adult is like watching space alien television. Where you're like,
Seriously.
"Yeah, no, this doesn't. This seems a little scary. Actually, I don't know what's going on."
But to circle back, obsessive interests. Why are obsessive interests, in your opinion, different within autistic people? I mean, not to call you out, but like you are really
I knew it.
You are really into planes,
Airplanes, yeah.
But what separates your obsessive? Maybe that's a bit of harsh, but what separates your? What is the difference between your obsessive interest with planes and an autistic person's obsessive interest with planes?
The primary difference generally is that like everyone has their obsessions. Everyone has their interests where they're obsessive. Like I love jet planes. I could tell you how to take apart and put back together an F-18. I could do it because I'm a psychopath. But the difference is someone with autism has such hyper focus or tends to have such hyper focus in their interest that they lose interest in everything else. Whereas like obviously I love airplanes, but I'm interested in other topics and can talk about other topics and interact with other topics. Whereas especially children with autism, they will get hyper focused on one topic, say Pokemon, and they won't talk about anything else, no matter what. They just shut down or ignore any other topic. And that becomes an issue when you go to make friends because obviously all the kids at school don't just want to talk about Pokemon. I mean, they do, but not only Pokemon. And this especially becomes an issue when it comes to education because then you're in the classroom trying to teach math, reading, writing, and the kid just wants to talk about and think about Pokemon and almost compulsively can't transition to a different thought.
Yeah, the obsess. I've noticed as I've gotten older. I mean, when I was younger, actually, you know what? I take that back. Even when I was younger, to you, have you ever observed maybe like it's an obsession of the week or obsession of the month type of deal
With you?
with your clients?
Oh, with my clients, definitely. The one I mentioned earlier who was quoting hip hop, every week it's a new YouTube hip hop artist he likes. And they're
Oh,
YouTubers,
God.
not musicians. Their music's terrible. YouTubers are barely people. But he'll just start talking about this one rap artist or song, and he won't transition. And I'll be like, I have no idea who this is or what you're talking about. We have to talk about something else, and he just will not do it. And then it changes every week. It's a different hip hop artist every week, or a different kid at school. He gets obsessed about specific kids at his school, and he'll just tell me all about this one kid at school, and I'll be like, I don't know who this is. And the next week it'll be a different kid he just obsessively talks about. I'm like, I don't know who this is either.
So let's focus on that obsessing over people.
Yeah.
Would you say that your clients, because this is a big problem that I had growing up and kind of still into my adulthood, crushes.
Oh no.
When they had would you say that your clients on the younger end had obsessive crushes on people?
Yes. I wouldn't say younger end. I would say more like high school age is when it starts happening. When everyone starts having crushes, really. But they do get more obsessed. I mean, most high schoolers, when they have a crush, get obsessed. But they get obsessed to the point where it becomes a problem. Where it can be creepy. People get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to really work on to be like, hey, this level of obsession is not appropriate. I know you're thinking about them a lot, but you can't talk about them a lot, and you can't just bring them up in every conversation. And you can't love bomb them and when you're talking to them in person, because that obviously is not it's a toxic trait. It's not a good relationship quality to love bomb people.
So the reason I ask about younger clients is that this was a problem I had all dating back to elementary school.
Oh.
Like when all the way starting back in stinking kindergarten, my parents will tell you, yeah, no, there's this all throughout elementary school. There's this one girl that you are head over heels for, to the point where even other parents are like, hey, he brought up this crush he had. Does he do that a lot? And my parents are like, oh, he did it again. Okay, so it's.
I don't mean to single you out, but I don't think any of my clients have actually done that, even the younger ones.
No,
at least
please,
not that I've heard of.
No, please single me out. That's the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like. My younger clients, all 4 of them currently, they all go, ooh, girls are icky.
Oh, really?
They're still in the girls are icky. One of them's like in late high school, and they're still in that girls are icky phase. And you're like, hey, you're not supposed to be in the girls are icky phase right now. Are you good?
But yeah, that really didn't. For me personally, like. The obsessive crushes never stopped, but they did get less severe. Like my parents would tell you during my elementary days, yeah, no, Mitchell, because my parents refer to me as Mitchell. Mitchell, you have to stop having this person be the forefront of your attention and your personality, which is why they are actually they were okay with me having. Let's see, what did I obsess with when I was younger? Pokemon, definitely. Power Rangers.
Hell yeah, Power Rangers is awesome.
Okay, so a quick side note. I caught the tail, when I discovered Power Rangers, it was at the tail end of the Ninja Storm series.
Yeah.
And then I watched the vast majority of the Dino Thunder series.
The peak.
Yes.
That and SPD.
And then I caught the first part of SPD, and then I got bored. So, hashtag rest in peace, Jason David Frank.
Yeah, rip.
But
I mean, I'm a grown ass adult, and I rewatched all of Power Rangers from beginning to end, and that shit slaps. It's real good.
When Power Rangers Dino Thunder was on Netflix, I watched it and, like, this holds up, and I'm very glad it holds up.
Yeah, it's crazy how much creativity and effort they put into like the costumes and even if they're stealing Sentai footage or Sensei footage, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, you're right. Super Sentai.
Yeah, even if they're stealing that footage, the effort they put into the costumes and the characters. Like, there was a pumpkin guy who showed up a bunch of times, and he just rapped. No context, no reason. He just spoke in rhymes. And you're like, yeah, I love this character. I'll remember that character for the rest of my life.
It sticks with you. It sticks with you. But yeah, it's, for me, my parents are all right with me having a different obsession that month, because it's like, okay, it's not it's not you're not obsessing over this person
Yeah.
because it's genuinely unhealthy and to the point where the girl's like, hey, are we going to need to talk to the school?
Yeah,
Are we going to need to talk to the teachers?
There is a slippery slope with that, though. I mean, obviously, you want to not be obsessed with a person in real life. That's unhealthy.
Yes, it is.
But you also don't want to be overly obsessed with fictional characters. I have a client who's 27. He has 50 different copies of Matilda, and he is head over heels for Matilda, even though it's like a little girl character, obviously. But he rewatches Matilda on repeat because he's obsessed with this one character. And we had to take away his Matilda DVDs to be like, you cannot watch this every day. This is bad for your health. Well, we should wrap up with the autism stuff. What autism is not, because we've been talking about what autism is, but there's a lot of things that autism isn't that people just all associate with autism.
Oh my God, yes.
Being weird, quirky, that's not autism. Everyone's weird and quirky, okay? It's not what defines autism. People with autism can be weird and quirky, but being weird and quirky does not mean you have autism.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. Or if I'm using that phrase correctly, I don't think I am.
No, you are.
Oh, okay, thank you. So,
or maybe, I don't know.
The thing that gets me is the social awkwardness. Like, oh, I'm so socially awkward. I'm autistic. No, socially awkward is like when you get nervous in social situations. But all of the cues, not verbal and non-verbal, you can pick up and it comes to you naturally. Autism is when it doesn't come to you naturally, and that's what ticks me off the most. Is there's a difference between being socially awkward and being autistic.
Yeah, a lot of people with very strong social anxiety, oftentimes it's because they know all the social cues and they know they're being weird. Mm-hmm. Obviously, someone who's twice exceptional, which is someone with autism who's very self-aware and very intelligent, very social, they also run into that weird middle ground where like they are on the spectrum and have difficulty socializing and picking up on social cues, but they also are good enough with social interactions to know they're not picking up on that and know they're being weird, which makes them even more anxious. But it's a hard line to walk, separate.
Yeah, what bugs me is whenever people say, "Oh, I wish I had the good at math autism, not the obsessed with Baldur's Gate 3 autism." It's like, no.
Yes, that's another one. I hate mainstream media for this. Everyone seems to think, oh, this person has autism. They must be a prodigy. They must be a piano genius, a math genius. No, that is not how autism works. There are people with autism who are prodigies, and there are also people who don't have autism who are also prodigies. It's just, it's silly and honestly shitty and hurtful to imply that as a stereotype, because then every person who has autism who isn't a genius feels bad because everyone expects them to be a genius. That's not how that works.
Something also I've encountered is that autism gets confused with Down syndrome or something more severe.
Yes, I've noticed that too, and I honestly couldn't explain it. Like, someone with Down syndrome is Down syndrome is a very obvious condition. It is very different than autism. Autism is very subtle in comparison. Autism is a very subtle condition in general because it's essentially a social disorder, which means the only way you can really tell if someone has autism is by interacting with them. There's no obvious genetic or physical cues or anything else.
And then, there's, people occasionally will see people loop in autism with mental retardation or Down syndrome. Like, no, those three things are very different.
Very different. We call it intellectual disabilities, by the way. I'm a little offended. You use the hard R word.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I hesitated to say that joke. Another thing that also irks me is that people seem to think that autism is just a lack of empathy. Where it's like, gosh. Oh yeah, people with autism just don't have empathy. And it's like, no, it's like, that's not true. At all. It makes sense why people think that because of the tone of voice and facial expression issues. But they do, people with autism obviously feel empathy. Mm-hmm. Everyone does. Oh, well, most people, as long as they're not like a sociopath.
Yeah, we call those people psychopaths.
Or YouTubers. But yeah, people with autism are able to feel empathy just like everyone else.
Gotcha. So yeah, we can go. Like, there's going to be a future episode I'd like to do with you where we can go over how, one episode how mainstream media has portrayed autism, and then another episode going into specifically the things that that get confused with autism.
I think that'd be a brilliant idea. Brilliant topic.
But for now, that is all we're going to discuss on this subject. We are going to move on to some of our favorite things, because you and I both like movies, you and I both like TV shows, and you and I both like video games.
Hell yeah.
So, if you'd like to start, please tell us what is a favorite movie, video game, or TV show that you would like to talk about?
Speaking of autism,
Oh no,
boy, do I love XCOM 2 and the entire XCOM franchise. Those video games are the best. I have, I think, 1,000+ hours in XCOM 2, the new one, the new remake. It's like crack. I don't know why my brain thinks in statistical probabilities now, like at all times. It's just everything about that game is brilliant. The maps are generated every time you load in, so they're similar but different, so you never feel like you're doing the same thing. The AI is random enough. The percent to hit chance is random. It's a isometric tactical RPG.
Yes, I was about to say, for those who may not know what XCOM 2 is.
It's a tactical RPG where you control a squad of soldiers fighting aliens. And everything is percent chance. It plays almost like a tabletop game where there's like squares and positions, and it is like advanced chess where your brain starts to just really zen out and understand the mechanics on like an intrinsic level. And it really does feel like I am a commander controlling my squaddies, and I care about their lives. Like, you feel bad when one of your teammates dies because it's your fault every single time. You're like, I could have done better and saved that person's life. And when they die, they're dead forever. You have to make a new character, which looks different, is a different person.
Wow.
So you get invested.
That's interesting. And didn't this game have its a standalone expansion, or am I thinking of a different thing?
Yeah, it had a War of the Chosen expansion, which added zombies and all these like unique nemesis characters and a bunch of mechanics. They added a bunch of new factions that are all headed by Star Trek voice actors. So like the first one you meet's Diana Troy, and then you meet Worf, and you're like, oh my god, it's Worf. And then Q shows up, and you're like, it's Q. I'm such a nerd, but it was super cool.
Yeah, I think I've met the actor for Michael Dorn.
Worf, yeah.
Yeah, I think I met him once at a con years ago. Nice guy.
Yeah.
Are the mechanics of XCOM 2 what pulls you in for 1,000+ hours, or is it the execution of it? Because I'm curious if you like other tactical RPGs like XCOM.
I have played a lot of tactical RPGs, and it's definitely the mechanics that draw me in, but they have to be executed well, because another one is Mechanicus. Warhammer Mechanicus is another tactics RPG in the Warhammer universe. Okay. Very good music, very good art, very good aesthetic. My favorite faction, Warhammer. So, like, super up my alley. Unfortunately, after about an hour, you steamroll the whole game because you get too strong and the game becomes too easy. And so that game, as much as I love that game, I don't think it's very good. And that's the issue with these tactics RPGs, is things have to be buttoned to the nines. If anything's just a little off, the whole system kind of crumbles. Like, if you get too strong or the enemies get too strong, it just stops being fun to play. So it's definitely more about execution.
Gotcha. Alrighty. For me, I'm going to briefly introduce this because I think you and I can turn this whole video game into a podcast for autistic and for media reasons. Yeah. I think you know the game I'm talking about. And the game that I fell in love with
Sonic 2006. Yep, I knew it.
Shut the fuck up. Okay, so no. This game you introduced me to, and I think I just gave away what it is, so don't spoil it. But this is a game that I think you and I could turn a whole episode into, and that is Disco Elysium.
Oh, yeah.
So to set it up for the future episode, it's a role-playing game where you play as an amnesia detective who's trying to solve a murder. Twists and turns abound, and that is all I will leave it on. It is only for PC. It's on Steam. It is excellent. Go play it.
Phenomenal game.
But if I was to pick a game that I absolutely adore, I was torn between two, but I'm going to talk about this, and that is Sid Meier's Pirates. Specifically, the remake that was released in the early 2000s for the PC and original Xbox with some removed content. The reason I love this game so much is that it does have a general plot that the game kind of nudges you to do, but it doesn't require you to do it. It essentially, in mechanics-wise, the Sid Meier's Pirates is essentially just a bunch of mini games strung together in a vast overworld. I was going to say open world, but that's not true. You can't really explore So you're plopped into the Caribbean in a time period of your choosing, mainly the 1700s, but you can do 1740s, 1760s, 1780s, etc. And you are a privateer or a pirate. And the main plot is that your family was kidnapped and you have to rescue them by doing a whole bunch of shenanigans. That's the main plot, but it's so open-ended that you could become an English privateer that only hunts down ships that the English are at war at, or you could raid merchant. You could be a lawless merchant raider that buys goods and then sells them in towns where you know that they go for a higher price. You could you become a pirate who says, hey, that I don't care what flag that ship is flying. I'm going to take it and I'm going to sell it. You can expand your crew. You can have multiple ships in your fleet. You can battle other historical pirates, ranging from pirates that were alive during the 1700s and pirates that were very much not alive during the 1700s. It's essentially a pirate sandbox, and it breaks my heart that this game does not have a sequel or at least a remake, considering the amount of games that the Sid Meier series has released since then, and with the increased amount of historical
knowledge,
piratical uncoverings that have happened during have come up since the game's release. Because there are some historical pirates that aren't even in the game that we know more about now.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So,
I mean, they could make like a modern version and make you like a Somalian pirate.
Oh,
oh my! But like the systems would still work in that situation, and I would actually be maybe even more engaged by a modern piracy simulator, or you could be a merchant, you could do all the bits and bobs.
Yeah,
because that would be interesting. You could add a little depth with new mechanics and stuff.
Oh yeah, this game,
global communication technologies and stuff.
Oh yeah, I personally this game is ripe for a remake because the only other pirate game fix that's come close to it was Assassin's Creed 4.
Black Flag, yeah.
Yeah, which is a good game, but it's not quite Sid Meier's Pirates for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
So, what's another movie, TV show, and/or game that you absolutely adore?
Let's see. Oh my gosh, I love so many movies and TV shows. Let me think of my current obsession. My current television obsession is Fargo. I'm watching the first season of Fargo, and it's phenomenal. What a good show! It's
at the time of recording, there's a new season out.
Yes, and I'm only in season 1, so I got a lot of seasons to catch up on. But it nails that Coen Brothers feel, where it's almost slapsticky, despite it being a gruesome murder story. There's so many moments where you're like, why is this kind of funny? It shouldn't be funny. But it nails that feel, even though it's not directed by the Coen Brothers. At least I don't think the show is. Just the original film.
Yes, I'm not sure about... I've never seen Fargo. I know of Fargo. I do know it's a Coen Brothers movie. But yeah, I'm not familiar with how involved the Coen Brothers are with the movie, if they are at all.
With the show, yeah.
With the show, my bad.
But yeah, that's my current obsession. That, and I watched the first episode of The Curse with Nathan Fielder. It's an HGTV parody where Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone, thank you. Emma Stone are just truly the most slimy, awful people. And every scene of this show is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen, ever. And I can't look away. The first episode, I was so interested and so engaged. I've never seen anything like it. I felt gross watching it. It's brilliant.
Did you ever watch Nathan For You?
Yes, every episode.
Okay.
And The Rehearsal.
The Rehearsal?
That was Nathan Fielder's show after Nathan For You, where he... The premise is, what if you could rehearse a pretty mundane social situation, but with an infinite budget? So the first episode's a guy who wants to tell his trivia team at a bar that he doesn't actually have a degree from college, that he never finished college, and he's super anxious about it. So Nathan Fielder recreates the entire bar within a studio, like to a T, like it looks exactly the same, and then hires people to socially hack his friends to learn their personal information and their personality so that they can act out the parts in the bar, and then they rehearse him telling them, with every outcome being planned and rehearsed. It's psychotic. Because the dude goes, hey, I don't actually have a degree, and his friends go, oh yeah, we don't care. We've known you for years. Why would we give a shit?
Damn, that is intriguing.
That's the first episode. That show is, it kind of goes downhill after the first episode because they recorded it during COVID, which put a lot of restrictions on it, but it was super duper good.
Interesting. The only Nathan For You episode I remember was the one where they fake a viral video with a pig rescuing a dog or something.
Yeah. Every Nathan For You episode's a gem.
So Fargo For You. I'm not really watching a whole lot of TV right now, although I will say that just my favorite. So my favorite late night talk show was. I know it's an outdated format these days, but in high school, I absolutely adored the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson.
Oh, I watched that too. Yes.
Craig Ferguson is such a. Oh man, there are so many layers to his comedy, but what I think really made his show succeed was that A, they didn't rehearse it.
Yes.
B, whenever he had on his guests, he would tear up the blue note cards, so it would be a less planned conversation. You don't like the guest and the audience and definitely the host didn't know where it was going to go, and so the conversations felt more organic. And not only did I love him, but my family loved him.
Yeah.
To the point where in 2014, when Craig announced, "Hey, I'm going to stop doing the show," that summer, my mom and I went to Los Angeles to watch a taping of the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson.
I'm so jealous. That's awesome.
And we also got to see a taping of Conan as well.
Oh, nice.
And on the subject of Conan,
I like Conan.
Conan is often regarded as the best late night talk show by a lot of us younger folks.
Yeah.
Here's while Conan is absolutely deserving of all of his flowers, here's why I disagree and why I think Craig is superior. It's that Conan did stick, depending on his guest, which has really infuriated me because it got kind of inconsistent towards the end. He did use the blue notes.
Yeah.
But if you watch Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, you know he doesn't need notes.
Yeah.
He doesn't need note cards. And if you want proof of this, watch any Conan O'Brien interview with Robin Williams.
Oh, they're
brilliant. And then compare it to Robin Williams' interview with Craig Ferguson. It is night and day. You can tell
Robin Williams is having so much fun with Craig Ferguson.
Yes, and
everything goes off the rails immediately in those episodes.
Yes, and then you can just tell that on Conan, Conan is Robin Williams is on a leash, and you can't do that with Robin Williams. And Craig understood that. Granted, he did that with all of his fucking guests, but Craig understood. No, with Robin Williams, you can't steer him in a direction. You got to latch on and just enjoy the ride. And so that is why Craig Ferguson, I believe, is the best late night talk show host post Johnny Carson. Conan is a close second, but no, Craig Ferguson.
I fully agree. I feel like the factor that makes both Conan and Craig Ferguson so likable is that they're both pretty humble. They both seem like real people who are genuinely funny, whereas, no offense to Jay Leno and the other late night talk show hosts, they were a little more serious. They took themselves a little more seriously and felt very professional, which isn't a bad thing. But there's something grounded and human about the comedy that Craig Ferguson and Conan do, especially Craig. And I think it also comes down to money. Like, I feel like Conan O'Brien would be just as funny as Craig Ferguson and just as humble and human and fun. But there are producers off screen, like with a gun pointed at him, being like, "Hey, don't tell a joke. We'll have to censor because we make too much money for that." Whereas Craig Ferguson had one of the lower funded late night shows, so he could just do whatever. Really, he didn't have a band.
He didn't have a late night band.
Yeah,
a lot of people forget that.
Yeah. He had Jeff though.
Oh my gosh! So, with Craig Ferguson, so Conan and Craig Ferguson's humor comes from two very different places. Conan, their backgrounds is Conan went to Harvard, was the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Lampoon, which is amongst the Ivy League universities considered the best satirical newspaper and within the system. And then he became a writer for Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons. And then he became a writer. I can't remember if while he was a writer for The Simpsons, and that's when the producer's like, "Hey, this guy can do a late night show," or if he was doing something else. But that was how he got into late night. Craig Ferguson, on the other hand, he was in a punk band. Granted, this is all in Scotland, bear in mind.
Yeah.
He had visited America, because I actually read his autobiography, American on Purpose. It's excellent. Read it. Riding the Elephant is good too, but I haven't read that. He was in a punk band during the punk phase of
Yeah.
He was in Scotland, but
during the real punk phase.
Yeah, so like
not the corporate punk stuff we have
yes, very much so. So, and then he visited America a couple times. He tried doing stand up. He tried doing a bunch of jobs, and then he also was he became an alcohol addict, and so he had to go to rehab. He went to rehab twice. And the second rehab taught him, hey, you're not cured. You have a lifetime of diligence ahead of you. And so I say all that to say Conan's humor is more smart funny, where it's like, there's a bit more intellect put into those jokes. Yeah, they're fucking stupid jokes. Yeah, they're...
But they're thought out jokes. Like, he wrote those jokes, whereas Craig Ferguson comes in with, like, kind of a more empathetic style of humor where it's like, it's just down to earth.
Yeah, it's very... he does have writers and whatnot that help write the jokes, but it comes from a more genuine place. It comes from a more, he's been through some shit, so his delivery is just more, hey, I'm genuinely having fun, I'm genuinely having a good place, and I'm having a good time with you, the viewer. Yeah. And then you throw in Josh Robert Thompson, who plays Jeff the Robot, his psychic, who can just bounce off of, and hilarity ensues.
Great show.
So... I'm sure we can talk a lot more about different subjects, but I think it is time to wrap up this episode, co-host extraordinaire. My name is Mitch Grace, and I've been joined by my co-host extraordinaire. Just a reminder, if you like what we've talked about here on the autism side, I do have a book published called Growing Up with Asperger's, Growing Lessons Learned and Shareable Wisdom by yours truly, Mitch Grace, available on Amazon now. Thank you so much for joining me, co-host extraordinaire, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.